Mister.
Hey everyone, Miss Dempsey here. This is a guide for round 10 of the manufacturer series. Let's get this started. Your first braking point is going to be at the 150 meter mark. Brake as much as you can in a straight line, and then when you start to turn in, that's when you start to trail brake. After you hit the first apex, you can briefly accelerate, then apply a little bit of brakes to get the car to rotate around this left-hander, and then get the car to point towards the next section of the track as soon as you can. That way you can get on the throttle sooner. Look for the end of the wall that is on the right after the 150 meter mark, as that's your next braking point. If you need the car to rotate a bit more, and this is specific for the Aston Martin, you can shift down into second gear. Do not hit the sausage curbs with your outside tires, as that will get you a penalty. Then brake at the 50 meter mark, trail brake your way in since this turn lasts a little bit long, and slowly start to accelerate. You will also brake at the 50 meter mark here, but you will not be trail braking as long as this turn opens up a little bit more. Look for a path in between the 150 and 100 meter mark, as that is your next braking point. Brake hard for a moment, then trail brake your way into the apex. When you're turning right, short shift into fourth gear, and then once your car is pointing towards this next apex right here, that is when you can start to fully accelerate. If you angle it right, you can take that turn flat out, but if you're going wide, like how I did, then you'll need to ease off the throttle just a little bit. Then for your final braking point, you'll be braking right after you pass the 100 meter mark. Trail brake your way into this turn, and once you pass this path that is on the right, that is when you can start to fully accelerate. You can open yourself up over here, and then once the turn is nearly done, just bring yourself into the right without crossing the line, and then you're good to go. Let's go ahead and talk about the strategies. When it comes to race strategy, racing hard tires are required. And also when it comes to fuel, you want to try to save as much fuel as you can while maintaining a good pace. Since Monza contains a lot of sections where you're going at a very high speed, you want to try to get a lot of slipstream out of the cars in front of you. That way you can go a little faster, but at the same time you can save a bit more fuel. And since I just mentioned slipstream, I also want to note when you're doing your qualifying, you want to try to find someone that you can get slipstream out of. That way you can end up going faster and potentially end up with a better time. So in this race, once again, since racing hard tires are required, you can start off with racing medium tires in the front and racing hard tires in the back. That way you can get the racing hard tires out of the way from the very start of the race. Then you can pit at lap 6 to switch over to racing medium tires, and then another 6 laps later, so at the end of lap 12, you can switch into a new set of racing medium tires and at the same time refuel. Whether you're going for the first or the second strategy, which I'll mention in a bit, you want to short shift to try to make your fuel last 12 laps, which is the time you'll be pitting in for the second time. Another way to save fuel is if you're behind someone and you're getting the slipstream from them, you can change your fuel mapping. That way you can still maintain a good pace right behind them, and at the same time you save a bit more fuel through the slipstream and the fuel mapping. So on to the second strategy. If you just want to start with a solid set of tires, you can start on racing medium tires only, and since the tire wear on this track isn't that harsh, you can pit at the end of lap 6, or if you really want to stretch it out, you can pit at the end of lap 7. Don't refuel, and the next time you pit is actually going to depend on how much fuel you have left. If you're able to short shift, get a ton of slipstream from cars in front of you, and change your fuel mapping as you go, you should be able to have it last all the way to lap 13, in which then you can pit in for racing hard tires. You don't want to spend too much time on racing hard tires, as your pace is a little bit slower with those kind of tires. if you're going to go for the lap 13 strategy, you'll need to constantly monitor your remaining laps. So on the fuel mapping menu, it'll be hanging out right there to see if your car will be able to make it to pit on lap 13. And if not, you can decide to either try to adjust the fuel mapping a bit more or just go ahead and pit on lap 12. And last but not least, we have a basic strategy of starting on racing medium tires, and then at the end of laps 8 or 9, you can change on over to racing hard tires, refuel, and then you're pretty much good to go. The reason why I say laps 8 to 9, part of it is depending on how your racing medium tires are doing. If they're still not too worn by the end of lap 8, you can definitely go for one more lap. But if they are pretty worn out, then you can pit in as early as lap 8. If you go with this strategy, you just want to make sure that your racing medium tires last a little bit longer, so that way you're not on racing hard tires as much, as once again your pace will be a little bit slower with racing hard tires. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this guide. Non-commentary versions are coming up, but I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So this is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.